and it is called Blues Coming On. Lots of great people on that album as well. Yesterday we had Shirley King, the oldest living daughter of B.B. King, who also just put out an album. A couple of the cuts on that album also featured Joe Louis Walker, and he's got lots of interesting people on here.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you, Frank, because
Yep.
Mr. Walker is with us, so I'm going to let him join us, and I'm going to step aside and run things on the backside here. So, and here is Mr. Walker.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
Good morning.
Good to have you on board this morning. Kind of a rush one. I know you have an 11 o'clock, so we're going to make sure we get to stuff real quickly. You just released a new album.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that. It's called Blues Coming On. 12 different tracks. Is there a message or is there a theme to this album?
Well, actually, when I first started doing the record, I was making another record, Everybody Wants a Piece, and so we had planned on this record coming out about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer. But Everybody Wants a Piece, as we say in the business, it had a long shelf life because it was nominated for a Grammy. We didn't win, but we were nominated. So that gave us a long time to tour behind that record. So and it was good because it gave this record time to have a long gestation period, because that way a lot of my friends' touring schedules open up. Yorma's Parkinson schedule opened up. My old friend from San Francisco, and I definitely I wanted to have Yorma. And the title track, the title of the name of the album was going to be called "Feed the Poor," which is the first song on the album, right. Because a young man named Gabriel Jagger, he wrote these poetry, and I've known Gabriel for a while, him and his dad, and Gabriel sent me his book of poetry that he'd written, and he caught my attention because the first stanza was people lying in the gutter, no father and no mother, everyone walks past because they're hypnotized by money's trance. And when he wrote that, it just hooked me because that's part of my background, being, out of sorts and, looking for help and couldn't get it. And I thought that reached a real nerve. So if it was a feeling about it, and Gabriel came up with the idea of, Joe, if we make any money off that track, let's give part of it to homeless shelters and you all right? What was okay?
Well, that was my phone, which I have now discarded.
Okay, so like I said, we were going to give part of that track, if we make any money off of it, to a homeless shelter and food pantries in the UK and the US, and that was sort of the feeling for the record. Just I wanted people that like Yorma comes out of the, he's a little bit older than me, but he comes out of the same area, San Francisco, in where he made his name with the airplane. And Sebastian came out of that same area, a little bit older than me. It's the same time frame, where the artists were usually connected with their fans and with causes that were, I would say, righteous. You can't get mad at wanting to feed somebody. I don't think there's any, anything wrong with that. So I just wanted people like that, and so that was sort of the feeling with Juma Sultan. The same thing. Juma came out. He's a little bit older than me, but he came out of that generation to where giving back was a part of the music. It was just what we did. And the music was part of whatever was going on socially at the time. Everybody from Bob Dylan to Sly and the Family Stone singing socially conscious things to raise people's awareness, to raise their conscience and try to lift people up. Well, that was sort of my feeling when Gabe sent me that song, and I wanted to try to have that sort of feeling, in the record if we could. That's why I started off the record with that song.
Do you feel you mentioned socially conscious, and I do want to talk about that a little bit. We're at a really interesting time in this country, and we have we're at a crossroads, I think. Where does music play a part of that?
Well, normally, whether it was Woody Guthrie writing "This Land Is Your Land," whether it was Bob Dylan writing "The Masters of War," or "Times They Are Changing," whether it was John Lennon writing "Imagine," or "Give Peace a Chance," whatever it was, the music was always there as a sort of manna from heaven, sort of a living, breathing testament to what's going on, and sometimes they help to change things for the better. What's weird about now is that we're all basically apart from each other, and that's very rarely been that way. I mean, I could name festivals, like I can say certain things right away. You'll say, where it was. I can say John Lennon and Yoko Ono in bed. What's the song you think of?
Well, I'm not good with that stuff, but
Give Peace a Chance. Come on,
sure.
man.
Yep.
Come on now. Come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, just all you need is love. I mean, on and on and on and on. And it was able to very peacefully in most situations, because it's hard to put real negativity into a song. Most situations it was just vocalizing what people were feeling. And I think the strange thing about today is that we're all so disconnected, and I don't think this has ever been like this, especially for musicians, to where we're disconnected from people and everybody gets their I don't know, their information and the stances they take from a tweet or a thing on Facebook, whereas before people would be together and things would be happening to where people could make it organic. And I think it's a strange, like you said, it's a strange time.
You mentioned a number of musicians, Dylan, Lennon, all these people who have done socially conscious songs, or rather than call them protest songs. I go back and I think about Peter, Paul, and Mary, and all the things that they did. And I had a conversation a number of years ago with Peter Yarrow, and one of the things that troubled him is that it doesn't seem that we have a lot of musicians today who are singing about or writing about some of these social causes. And I particularly look at it today. I think there's an incredible need as we go through this Black Lives Matter movement, which is not new. It's just that it's resurfaced, if you will. It's been with us for a long time, but there's the need for that effort from the arts, I think.
Yeah, well, I believe you're right, but I do know quite a few young people, young musicians, blues musicians, that have written. One of my friends, Selwyn Birchwood, wrote a song called "Police State." It's sort of like a Bob Marley thing, like 3 o'clock Road Black, just to give you a feeling of how scary it feels to be stopped at 3 o'clock at night and you ain't got the complexion to make the connection. So that type of thing. Just notating, but the record label, some of the record labels, they don't want to offend anybody because they are scared that some of the musicians may not be invited to the blues cruise, which may have a different political slant, or they might not be able to perform on some quote unquote big blues rock artist blues cruises and this and that and the other. So you have to be apolitical, or you will be sort of I don't know. Well, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. So I like this thing. Make blues, not war. Well, we'd love to do that. That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing since we got here. Is trying to make blues. We sure can't make war, but that doesn't. That's sort of it's a right turn, because you're not. Everybody doesn't have to be John Lennon or Bob Marley or Tom Morello or Woody Guthrie. But it sure does raise your awareness. You know, it raises your awareness big time. I just think of all the songs that John Lennon did. Give Peace a Chance. Imagine what Bob Marley did. 3 O'Clock Roadblock. I Shot the Sheriff. And people had a good. You could. It was like seeing a little movie. And you know what? And the thing about it was that these guys, they put their money where their mouth was. You know, Bob Marley was like that all his life. John Lennon was like that. You know, there was no if and but about it. You know, and so that is really, really inspirational. You know, Peter Yarrow, God bless them. You know, and he's right. But in a way, I got to be honest. A lot of rappers speak to what's going on, and they spoke to it from, you know, back to NWA, you know, where Ice-T said F the police, you know. Well, he ends up playing the police on TV. So now he you know, now he doesn't feel exactly like that anymore. But now you know, it's I guess it depends on where you sit in a struggle. It depends
so take
on
the
where
blues,
you sit.
take the blues way back. I mean, hasn't it been that? Hasn't it been really what the blues has done since the Mississippi Delta days? Since guys, you know, like Mississippi John Hurt, people like that, that they spoke to conditions of the times.
Well, yeah, because that was cathartic for them. That was the only voice that they had. If you know, if they spoke back, you know, to someone physically, they'd be in a world of trouble. And you know, if they didn't, if they seemed threatening, you know, so the music was the only thing they had. Whereas someone like Woody Guthrie, you know, was just incredible. You know,
The music in a sense, and to you, tell me what music is about, what music should mean to people, not just entertainment. It's more than that.
well, I think music it serves a lot of purposes, but the main thing that I noticed in traveling all over the world is that it 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 helps people to get in touch with certain feelings, and you may not be able to articulate what it is uh, uh, in, um, in the world today that's bothering you. I may not be able to articulate it, but if someone says, brother, you don't have to escalate. War is not the answer. Only love can conquer hate. Well, Marvin Gaye just said it all right there. You know, we don't have to escalate. We can talk. You know, war is not the answer because only love can conquer hate. I mean, you can't get any more direct than that. Those are words to hang your hat on.
Joe, I'm going to change gears just a little bit. And how has it been during this period of the coronavirus? And certainly, a lot of all the venues have been shut down. There's been no place to play. A lot of musicians have been hurt during this time. Tell me how it's been for you and what you're hearing from other musicians.
Well, all the musicians that I know, and some of them are very well known, some of them not so well known. Just all my friends. Um, this is the first time where we've all had to stop what we're doing, and literally, our futures are not in our hands. They're in the hands of politicians. And just like your future is in a way. They can tell you what to wear, what mask to wear, what not to, you know, and of course you can do the right thing. But for us musicians, the first thing you learn when you go on tour and you're all on tour all the time, you got to be part gypsy to do this. The second thing you learn is that you get to reach people in a medium that is I can go to Beijing, China right now, and I've been there. I performed there twice. There will be people there that remember me being there. They'll come to me, blues musicians. How are you doing, Joe? How's things in America? Da 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 da. And I will be friends with them forever. Forget the politics. Forget everything about that. But by me being friends with them, I'm sort of an ambassador for my country, you know. And they're sort and they're the way the number one thing America's given this world, and I asked Colin Powell this. I know Colin Powell. What's the number one thing America's given this world? Music. Because our music means freedom. That's what it means to people around the world. That's what it meant to everybody from Mick Jagger to the kid in Beijing I was talking about. Because they didn't have that musical freedom that we have. And that freedom that we have is indicative, it's uniquely American. And the optics of it, of a band like the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, 2 black, 3 white, or the optics of someone like the band like Love, or the optics of it with women in the band, men in the band, gay people in the band, that is uniquely American. You couldn't have done that in Yugoslavia. You couldn't have done it. You couldn't have done it anywhere but here. And that is so inspirational that I think that it's a shame that all the musicians that I know have to sit and wait for the politicians to God knows do what, so that they can say, okay, you guys can go out and do this. Our profession or calling is called non-essential. So we are the last one, the very last, the very phase 5. Instead of the phase 6, we're the last of phase 6 to be able to do what we want. And now, unfortunately, I'm looking on, I just cursory look at the news, and I seen that now Europe is saying that they probably won't let Americans in while our numbers are out of control, because that's what we did to them. So try this on for size. I got friends that are supposed to be going to Europe in September, November, that they put off those tours from March to do in November. Beautiful tours, blah, 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 blah. And they may not be able to go. And you just think about that and you say, wow. And there's another element too, is that musicians are, an artist in particular, this is not only what we do, this is who we are. So, and it's an organic thing. You do it with people. And so when you're not able to do that, you have a tendency to say, well, you know, what am I going to do? You know, only so many virtual broadcasts you can do on a guitar. Music is an organic, it's a communal thing. It's an audience, there's people, there's feedback, there's give and take, and that's gone now. And we don't know when it's coming back. And if we don't get a handle, you know, on the virus if we don't row in one direction together, I think we're just going to be, you know, like anything else. It's sad, you know, but it's sort of like a house divided, but for some of the wrong reasons. You know,
well, it is a house divided, and it's a house that lacks leadership going up to the very top. And I think that's much of the problem that we have is we're going in a lot of different directions.
Well, you know, I respect a person's right to vote and believe for who they want to believe in. What I have a problem with is, okay, we can all have our certain truths that reach us, but we can't have separate facts. A fact's a fact, okay? And when you start fudging with the facts, and you start blaming this on that person and this person and that person, then what's happening is we all can't get on the same page as a country. And you know, I won't get into a thing of the leadership of the country. Everybody knows what's going on. You know, everybody knows what's going on. And you know, I think, you know, we're probably one of the better educated countries in the world. We know what's going on, and we know why it's going on. The big question is, why are we letting it go on? That's the big question, you know. And if that's the big question, then we have to search our own souls and say, well, do we really want to be a country of us's and them's, us and them? So what do we treat us pretty good and we put them in a cage, or we treat us pretty good and we push a 75-year-old man on the ground, let his head snap, and then you say, oh, no, we didn't do it. He fell on his own. And oh, no, we did do it. And I mean, if that's going to define us, then I don't want to be part of us. I want to be part of them.
So what I think is really important is that out of these protests and out of people who have it in their heart, that people need to vote. You know, among democracies, we are one of the lowest voting nations in the world, and we need people to get out there and to vote and to run for office. I'd love to see some of these young people run for office. In fact, today or yesterday, a 24-year-old Republican won a primary election that he wasn't supposed to win somewhere in the South. I forget which state. Pretty remarkable that there's a young person. He or I may or may not agree on his position. He actually ran against a pro-Trump Republican in the primary. But we need people. We need young people to step forward because young people often have a greater ability to be flexible with their positions and to be able to sit down and listen and hopefully compromise and come to solutions to some of the things that are really very troubling in this nation now.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend, Bruce Barris, great piano player, played with so many people, plays with Duke Robillard right now. His son ran for office and won. You know, so I mean, and my stepson has run for office in Atlanta. You know, he's done things. I mean, my daughter, my oldest daughter, is just with the mayor of San Francisco. My oldest daughter lives in San Francisco. I mean, I think you hit the right button there. I have faith in the young people because now they have skin in the game, serious skin. You know, and I'll just leave it. I'll leave it alone after this. Those young people out there that are marching consistently, those young people out there that are screwing up, tearing stuff up, those young people out there that are Republican, those young people out there that are Democratic, those are our children. Hello. I was one of those young people out there. I marched for gay rights in San Francisco, women's rights I marched for. When I was in 1962, I went back to Mississippi. My dad sent me back. My parents, my uncle, my grandma, they couldn't vote in Mississippi. Try to wrap your head around that. I can tell, and I tell that to young people coming through my band, and it's sort of, I could see them sort of, that's really weird. They couldn't vote. Yeah, so you should vote. But now, since all this stuff has just started happening, all these young people in my band, majority of them who were in my band, all of them are saying, Joe, you're right. Now we got skin in the game. My friend got beat up. My friend I went to Berkeley with college got shot with a rubber bullet. My girlfriend got pushed down, and we were peaceful. And I just say now, the government, as it is now, the powers in charge are creating a whole generation of Pete Seegers, Tom Morellos, Woody Guthrie's, Angela Davis's, Bruce Springsteen's. They're creating that whole generation. And you know what? The generation didn't have a calling card before, but they do now. You look at that young lady, Greta Thunberg, who came over here from Scandinavia on a ship. She could have flew. She read the United Nations, the Riot Act. Okay, look at the world you're leaving us. Well, you know what? You can go to Google Earth. Look what the Earth looked like 4.5 months ago. Look what the Earth looked like 2 months ago. Two different total pictures. A smog, just a mess, to almost, look what we did in the space of 2 months, because everybody stopped. Everybody stopped. And just to know that the powers that be pulled out of the climate accords. They pulled out of everything that's humanistic, yet and still they say, while we're making plans, God's laughing. God's laughing because he just showed us that, or if there is a God, just showed us how really, if we all pull together, we could change even climate change. So here's my spiel. You want to keep it going? If young people listen to this. If you drive a car and your license plate has 2 even numbers, you carpool with somebody in the city or whatever who have like-minded cars. You carpool on a Tuesday and Thursday. If you have an odd number, you carpool on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. That would cut emissions down completely. Not all the way, but if they did it all around, it's obvious. We got the roadmap now. We can do it. But I'll bet you a bucket load of money that the first thing that's going to happen while they want to go back to work so bad, they're going to find those clean coal jobs. If you find a clean coal job, I can sell you a bridge to Xanadu.
Yeah.
It's not a clean coal job, so we have opportunities. We have ways to do it. I have a little faith in the younger people. I hope the elections go without being tampered with, so the young people get a fair chance to vote and people get a chance to vote. And we'll see. We'll see, because it's a fight for our country's soul. And we'll see what happens.
Joe, I want to take a little bit of a turn. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about how you got started in music, how you got to the blues, what kind of a household you lived in, and what it meant back in 2013 to be inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. But how did it all begin for you?
Well, like I said, my dad was from Cleveland, Mississippi, and my mother was from Little Rock, Arkansas. And so, just make it short. They got here. My dad had to leave Mississippi because there was not opportunities, and he just couldn't live like that. And my mom's family was leaving Arkansas, so they connected. And I'm the youngest of the litter of five, but my dad was married before, and he had 9 other children. So they didn't live with us. But my dad would come home from working when we moved to San Francisco, and he'd play. His one enjoyment was that he had a little 45 player, and you could convert it, at 78s on it too, and he would play these records for me. And he seen that out of all my brothers and sisters, I just lit up. I remember those days, 6, 7, 8 years old. I just light up when he played the records. And if I was a good kid all day, he'd play the records. If I was bad, he wouldn't play it, and I would throw a hissy fit. So he had me like Pavlov's dog. So I got to an early dose of music, and my dad was big where he came from. Some of the guys who were famous from the Delta, he knew him. He went to juke joints and seen him play the Howlin' Wolf and guys like that. And so he was very proud of them. That was his peer group, and he was very proud. And so he if he could have been, he'd have been a musician. So he sort of passed that love of music on to me. So one thing led to another, and I started playing, picked up a guitar about 8 years old, trying to make some noise off of it. I couldn't. So it took a while for me to get it really going. And then when I was 12, we moved to the Fillmore district. I'd been living in another district called the Ingleside district in San Francisco. When we moved to the Fillmore district, they told me, well, your cousins stay up the projects up there. I stayed in the projects down past Fillmore Street. They stayed the projects up. And so I went up there to see, because my cousins had a band. I'd never seen them. And as I got there, they lived on the 3rd floor. And when I got to the 1st floor, there was girls lined up every floor, just standing in the hallway listening. And of course, I was home then. I went into my cousins and I said, I want to play. And they just looked at me, okay, you're going to carry the equipment. I didn't know I was going to carry the equipment for a whole year. They made me carry the equipment for a year before I could play. But during that year, my mom made me make a deal with her. At 12, she said, okay, all the other kids the guys are playing football and going out playing this and that and the other. On your Saturday, you're going to go to a music teacher. And I was like, I can do both. No, you can't. You got to sacrifice. So I'd go to this music teacher for 3 hours a day. And she was real smart, like my dad. She'd start me on acoustic guitar, but she had the electric guitar in the corner. And just at the end of a lesson, if I did real good, she'd say, I'm going to the bathroom for about 10 minutes, knowing that I was going to grab the electric guitar, So I had a lot of good people like that in my life. And so one thing led to another. I started playing with my cousins, and we were playing all over. We played the Film Auditorium because that was our playhouse. We all lived near, I went to junior high school a block from the Film Auditorium. And at the time, the Fillmore was like Harlem in the Renaissance. It was predominantly African-American, Japanese, and Jewish. That was the makeup of the Fillmore district at the time, for the most part. And so when Bill Graham came there and the Mime Troupe and the hippies, the Film Auditorium changed its policy of booking. But Bill Graham, God bless him, kept the blues on, but he would have something like the Grateful Dead on the show with Lil Walter and Bo Diddley, and I know that because that's the one time I seen Lil Walter was on one of those shows, but it wasn't that one. It was a show the Hells Angels threw, and I saw that show, which was a great show. So that was my education. And at the same time, me and my cousins were playing all over California, and we were playing so much we had to join the musicians union when I was 14. So when you're a young guy and you're in the union, and we were making like $100 a show, which was a lot, but it was just three of us, and then it was four of us, then three. It was pretty good money for young guys, and so we just did a lot of things like that. And then at 16, I left home and I would answer ads in the music papers for a lead guitar player. Because one good thing my dad taught me by me listening to those records, that I learned how to pick out guitar solos. I learned that, and my mom sending me to school to learn some lessons was that, I learned that playing a solo was basically you're picking out single notes from a chord. So that's all it is. It's how you arrange the notes and the movement of the chords. You have to move your solo. Okay, a lot of guys can't do that. They just play the pentatonic scale over everything. And that's okay too. That's blues scale. So I got at 16. I left home and I started this journey.
You played with a lot of great people along the way, and you've I think it's like your 23rd or 24th album now. Blues Hall of Fame. That must have been an incredible experience.
Oh yeah. That was very, very emotional for me, because it was weird, because I got inducted the year after a guy who took me under his wing, who was just a great guitar player and very instrumental in American music, Michael Bloomfield, who I lived with for a while. I got inducted a year after he did. And I got inducted the same year. Another old guy helped me, who I played with a bit, named Earl Hooker. Everybody knows his cousin, Johnny Hooker, but a lot of people don't know who Earl Hooker is. So it was sort of bittersweet because none of those guys could be here, And I look at the Blues Hall of Fame, the real Blues Hall of Fame, the one in Memphis, Tennessee, run by the Blues Foundation. And I look on it, and it's like, I am not the youngest one. The youngest one now is, I believe, the youngest person who was inducted to the Blues Hall of Fame. It might have been Stevie Ray, might have been the youngest person, or Robert Cray. I think they're the same age. I don't know, but I'm about 9 years older than them, and so it was just amazing. And fortunately, I'm one of the few that are, some that are alive. Because the ones that are alive, I can just talk off the top of my head, are Taj Mahal, Charlie Musselwhite, John Mayall, John Mayall, and guys like that, and all those guys are older than me, and I'm glad. Geez, without those guys, those I'm just
like Mount
Rushmore. Yeah,
the
Mount Rushmore. Yeah, the Mount Rushmore of blues for a certain degree. So I felt honored, but I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say it was sort of bittersweet, because both of my daughters came. That's right, and one of my grandsons, and that was good. But you look back on things and say, oh man, I wish my moms could have seen this, or my father, because they sacrificed for me to be here.
Joe, one more story I want you to tell I've heard you tell, which is about how rock and roll got started.
Well, I think the best way to say it is like Muddy Waters. The blues had a baby. They called it rock and roll. I think Muddy. But I mean, the gist of it is this, and you think of it, they were doing that sort of rhythmic, the dancing beat and what have you, and they called it rhythm and blues. Then they called it rhythm and blues, and so you get this guy coming along, hairdresser out of St. Louis. He wants to play blues, but it's not his forte. So he really loves country. So he takes Wabash Cannonball. I'm inside the Wabash Cannonball. And he takes it and he flips it on his head and he says, Maybelline, why can't you be true? So he's got a country hit. He knows it. Goes to his first country show. Hi, I'm Chuck Berry. I'm playing tonight. You may be Chuck Berry, but you ain't playing here tonight. So Chuck, so this okay, well, you can't play country. So every song he writes, there's the word rock and roll in it. Rock and roll music. This and that. There's rock and roll. Back in the USA, rock, roll, rock, 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 rock. Everything he writes got rock and roll in it. Then you get Scotty Moore, you know, my good friend, God, I miss him. And you get Roy, very gentleman Americans want to do blues their own way because they didn't want to do traditional country. They wanted to do blues. So they invent what you call rockabilly. And that is uniquely American. That could only happen in America. Couldn't happen nowhere else. Because they were allowed the freedom to do it. They all caught hell for doing it. Because the old rock and roll guys and the old rockabilly guys were, you know, it was all brand new. You know, there was record burning. Hell, they were burning Beatles record 10 years after that, you know, and all kind of what I call the fear factor, you know, which is what people use to manipulate people, I think. And the fear factor was as such that, you know, you, like Abraham Lincoln said, you can fool some people sometime, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And so what they would do, Little Richard would let out Tutti Frutti in the same week they let Pat Boone out. Tutti Frutti, oh Rudy, Tutti Frutti, not knowing that he's singing a song. I can't even say what the song's really about, but that was all the time. Good golly, Miss Marty, Pat Boone, the same week. Good golly, Miss Marty, just take all the soul out of it, and so you would get Fats Domino doing "Walking to Ricky Nelson," but Ricky Nelson's cool people, Ricky Nelson, but the fact of the matter is, and the same with Big Mama Thornton with Hound Dog and Ball and Chain, Elvis and Janis Joplin. You know, America sort of like its heroes, its reflection in the mirror, you know, and so it became a thing of that was a big that was I think a big hurdle for the originators, and that was, you know, it was just criminal what happened with people like Chuck Berry, that he'd write certain songs, Sweet Little 16, Roll Over Beethoven, and he all you got to do is see Chuck Berry's movie Hell Rock and Roll, and he talks about it. He says, you know, I'm sitting in the room by myself writing Roll Over Beethoven, but when the record comes out, I see Chuck Berry and Tony Franco was in there writing with me, and he says, "Oh, I know. I never met Tony Franco, so how did his name get on my song?" You know, so you know, and Chuck is very diplomatic about it. But that's, you know, that's the story of the music business, and that's the story of America. You know, it's the type of thing we just got to make it better. You know, and people have died to try to make this better. And you know, God bless the English guys for coming over. And you know, I think if it wasn't for the Rolling Stones, and then most Americans wouldn't know what blues is. They'd never seen Howlin' Wolf on TV. That's for sure, because the Stones made Shindig play them on TV. You know, I mean, and that is that just shows that there was a direct connection from heart to heart when the Beatles heard someone like a Chuck Berry, or they heard someone like a Larry Williams do a "Hey Junior, behave yourself." They wanted to play that. They didn't want it to play "Strangers in the Night." But no dissing on Frank Sinatra. They didn't want to play "Everybody Wants." So they didn't want to do that. You know, nothing wrong with that. But they wanted to get the feeling. That's why when Little Richard went to England, he took Paul McCartney on his wings. Brian Epstein offered Little Richard half ownership of the Beatles. Richard said it was the biggest mistake he ever made. The biggest mistake. And you damn right it was. You know?
Joe, it's I know you've got another interview coming up. I just want to urge people that I've listened to the new album. It's great music, really great music. And you know, I really appreciate you coming on this morning, and some great stuff. I hope people get out and buy the album. I hope people watch this interview. I think you're great. I think the message you gave us this morning was just absolutely right on, and something we need to take to heart.
Well,
But I want to thank you, Joe. Thank you.
We are going to be playing a couple of drive-in shows. We're going to be up at the Tupelo Music Hall up in New Hampshire on the 24th, I believe it is, of July, and we're going to be at big out at Plattsburgh, New York, on the 25th. Both are drive-in shows, you know, out where they're doing drive-ins now. So that'll be our first time getting our feet wet. So we wish us luck, and we hope you know people want to come out. You know, hopefully that'll be the first step on opening up, and we can hear all kind of great music.
Yeah, terrific. Joe Louis Walker, thank you much this morning. Good luck with your next interview, and good luck on your driving events.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, Frank.
All right,
thank you everybody for listening in.
All right, great to talk.